Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if psychology research is changing fast, like really fast? In this episode, we're diving into a massive study that looked at how researchers in psychology are using new thinking tools and being more open about their work. So picture this, psychology is a science, right? And like any science, it is always trying to get better at understanding how our minds work. For a long time, there have been some big discussions about how psychological research is done, especially about making sure studies are reliable and that we can trust the results. Two of the main things people have been talking about are using a different way to do statistics called Bayesian Inference, and a big one, something called open science practices. This study set out to see just how much these new ways of doing things have actually taken off. The researchers looked at a huge number of articles, almost 30,000 published over 20 years, from 2004 to 2024. They split these journals into two groups. Top-tier journals, which are like the really famous ones everyone reads, and mid-tier journals, which are still good but maybe not quite as widely known. They wanted to see if these new practices were showing up and how often. What they found is pretty mind-blowing in 2024. In those top journals, about a quarter of all articles were using Bayesian analysis. Now, what is Bayesian analysis? Think of it as a more flexible way to do statistics, instead of just saying yes or no to a hypothesis. It helps researchers update their beliefs as they see more evidence. It's like saying, based on what I knew before, and now seeing this new data, how much should I change my mind about this idea? It can also tell you how strong the evidence is against an idea, which is something traditional stats methods aren't as good at. They also found that about 41% of articles in top journals included a pre-registration. That means researchers decided exactly what they were going to do in their study before they even collected any data. This is a huge deal because it helps prevent researchers from accidentally or intentionally changing their analysis to fit the results. And a massive 73% of top-tier articles provided open data. This means they shared all the information about their participants and the data they collected so anyone can check it, reuse it, or try to reproduce the study themselves. Now, in the mid-tier journals, the numbers were a bit lower, but still very significant. About 16% of articles used Bayesian analysis, 18% had a pre-registration, and 40% shared open data. This shows a clear trend, even if it is not quite as far along as in the top journals. The really striking thing is that just a decade ago, these practices were barely a blip on the radar in psychology research. From 2004 to around 2012, these new methods were rare, almost non-existent. Then, starting around 2014, they just exploded in popularity. The researchers used fancy mathematical models to predict what might happen next, and their models suggest these trends will keep going up. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. More researchers are seeing the benefits of these practices, so more are adopting them, and this is likely to continue. Beyond those main points, the study also noticed other shifts. For example, the way researchers analyze data has changed. They're using more complex models called mixed effects models, which are good for dealing with data that has different groups or levels. Also, how researchers report the software they use has improved. Back in the day, many studies didn't even say what software they used, making it hard to replicate. Now, more and more studies are reporting it. And there is a big shift towards using open source software like R instead of older proprietary ones like SPSS. However, one area that showed only small gains was a focus on estimating specific values, rather than just testing whether a result was statistically significant. A p-value, for example, is like a flucometer. The lower the p-value, the less likely the result is just random chance, but it doesn't always tell you the size or importance of an effect. Bayesian methods and emphasizing certain statistical results encourage a more nuanced approach. So, what does this all mean? It is a pretty clear picture of a field in transformation. Psychology research is becoming more transparent, more rigorous, and more open. It's not happening at the same speed everywhere, and there is still a lot of variation between different journals and research areas. But the overall direction is undeniable. These changes are making psychology a more reliable and trustworthy science. To do this huge study, the researchers had to be really careful. They sampled journals across different areas of psychology like social, clinical, and developmental psychology to get a good spread. Then they had trained people and also a really smart computer program, a large language model or LLM, go through the full text of thousands of research papers. They looked for specific clues that the study used Bayesian methods, was pre-registered, or had open data. They even used special methods to make sure their coding was reliable, checking for agreement between the human coders and the LLM. They also had to make decisions about what counts as open data. For example, data that is available upon request, even if it's not immediately downloadable, might not count for this study. it had to be truly openly available. The numbers we've shared are from 2024, but they also looked at the whole period from 2004 to 2024. And it is this trend over time that is the really exciting part. The growth is dramatic. It is not just a small increase. It is a fundamental shift in how research is being conducted. It's important to note that there are other studies out there that have looked at these practices, and the numbers can vary. This study's high numbers for pre-registration and open data in top journals are much higher than some previous estimates. This might be because they had a very detailed way of looking through the full articles, not just relying on something like keywords in the title or abstract, which might miss many instances. Now, like any study, this one has some limitations. They looked at 12 specific journals, which is a lot, but it is not every psychology journal out there. So the trends in these specific journals might be a bit ahead of the average across the whole field. Also, even with humans and AI coding, there is always a small chance of error in how things are classified. And finally, they looked at whether these practices were used, not necessarily how well they were implemented. For example, just having data available doesn't automatically mean it is high quality or easy to use. So what's the big takeaway? Psychology research is going through a major upgrade. Open data is becoming the norm in the best journals. Pre-registration is gaining serious traction, and Bayesian inference is becoming a more common tool in the statistician's toolbox. This is fantastic news for the reliability and trustworthiness of psychological science. It means we can have more confidence in the findings that come out, and we can build on that knowledge more effectively. This study really tells a story of progress. It shows that the scientific community can adapt and adopt better practices when there is a clear need and the right tools become available. The future of psychology research looks brighter and more transparent because of these methodological shifts. It's exciting to see how these trends will continue to evolve and what new discoveries they will help unlock. What do you think about these changes in psychology research? Are you surprised by the numbers? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into a fascinating study, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science breakdowns, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the amazing world of the mind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.